I want to put out my vision for Nigeria. As a Nigerian, there are what I hold as sacred, as my philosophy, and I believe that if our leaders will put these ideas in practice or will look at the ideas I have, we are going to have a great country. One thing that you must understand is that Nigeria is a great country with my massive potential. And I believe if I should be the president of Nigeria today, tomorrow, these are the things that I will likely do or restructure or put structure into it. You see, one thing is important to understand that Nigeria is a great country with great potential, but we lack managers of dreams, managers of ideas who can galvanize, the resources we have, the talent we have, the ideas we have that will help us to move from wherever we are today to where we're supposed to be, where China is today, where India is today, where Pakistan is today, where Israel is today. These are the South Africa, these are the places that Nigeria is supposed to be. Indonesia, Singapore, South Korea, these are contemporaries of Nigeria. Shortly after colonialism, 1960, most of these countries picked up from that point. And don't forget, the agitation for independence in Nigeria started from the 1940s, where we have people like Azikwe, Tafawa Balewa, and other intellectuals who, agitated for the independence of Nigeria. So the issue is this: the crop of leaders we have today, if you compare them with the founding fathers of the Nigerian state, you discover that 90% of the leaders we have today, they are intellectually barren. You can't point to books they have written. You can't point to books they have written. The crop of leaders that we have today is only few, and especially like Olusegun Obasanjo, who had My Command and other books written by him. But you hardly see any of the leaders today that has written anything meaningful, putting forth their clear ideology, vision for the Nigerian state. Now, let me go to the beginning, and I will start from the foundation of Nigeria. In 1914, Nigeria was amalgamated um, by a colonialist, and amalgamating Nigeria is not a problem because no nation on earth that has never been colonized directly or indirectly. In the history of nations on earth, there must be a point in the history of nations that they were colonized. In that time past, in the distant historical past, 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, there must be history of colonialism. There must be. So no nation on earth that wasn't colonized. You see, I always have issue with this post-colonialism. And for me, when we talk about post-colonialism, there are many people say these are post-colonial thinkers. I would have preferred anti-colonialism. I wouldn't stand here to give you the difference, but you know we have pre-colonial, colonial, and post. So when we talk about post, it's something that is after. It shows like a continuum. Many nations of this world, they resisted colonialism. And the moment colonialism ended, they destroy every specter, anything that looks like colonialism, they destroy it and they advance in a direction that the nation wants. UK here was colonized by Latin, by the Roman Empire, by equally France colonized part of England. And so if you look at the English language, you see influence of Latin and French. Why was it so? Because of colonialism. But a generation came that did not see itself as a post-colonial thinkers, but anti-colonialists. They attack it, destroy every institution that subjected them, that that destroyed their independence. They destroy it or eradicated it or advanced beyond it, and do not, spend so much time looking back. The problem with post-colonialism is that we keep on looking back. Because once it is post-colonialism, there is that tendency that you have to keep on making reference to colonialism. Until today, this is roughly how many years ago? 1960 to date. We are still talking about colonialism. We are still talking about things that happened during colonialism. And that has a kind of limited the progress of many African countries. But let us look at unification over balkanization. The unification of Nigeria, the Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate. Is it a good thing? Some people say Nigeria is a geographical space, is whatever you call Nigeria. Nigeria is a nation, is a state, is a country, is an entity. The reason why we keep on looking at the division, the demarcation lines, is because the country is not working. If it is working, nobody will look at the dividing lines. Nobody looks at dividing lines in the family when the family is united. You must say, I was born before you, I came before you, I'm this, I'm that. No, everybody works together. So now in 1967, there was an attempt to balkanize Nigeria, which led to a brutal 3 years of civil war that ended in 1960. Yeah, this war affected Nigeria so badly. But there were many things that happened before the civil war, which I am not here, is not the focus of this video, of this uh, podcast. The focus of this is to itemize my dreams that I am a unionist. I believe in the unification of Nigeria over its balkanization. Because if you look at Nigeria critically, you understand that you have 6 geopolitical zones. And I believe that the people that identify these geopolitical zones, they were highly learned. They were ethnographers. They were anthropologists. They were thinkers, those that identify the regions. Because if you go to Nigeria today, you see that the regions are highly balkanized. The Northwest, the Northeast, across culture, religious belief, ethnicity, we were divided. So we have the Northeast, the Northwest, South, Southeast, and the Middle Belt, the Midlands. I would prefer we to be called the Midlands, not even the Middle Belt, the Midlands. Now, if you look at the geopolitical zones, South, Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest, and the Midlands, you discover that we are people divided by lines: cultural, social, economic, political, religious, ideological. We are divided from the beginning. In fact, Nigeria is like an amalgamation of nations who were historically independent and opposing each other. But by the force of colonialism, we were joined together. And if you look at that unity, it is a unity that has so much potential, but we could not turn our differences into assets. That is why we are where we are today. If you look at America today, America is an amalgamation of countries, of territories. Some of them were independent historically, but they brought them either through violence or negotiation, binded themselves together. Now, this is roughly 250 years, and they are still standing. So, divided, our potential is formidable. United, our potentials is formidable. But once we divide, it's going to cause so much chaos. So much chaos. And don't forget, when a nation, you know, separates itself from an existing country, the new nation begins to go through the teething problems of new nations, the teething problems of civil war, civil crisis, military rule. Look at what happened in South Sudan, which is one of the newest countries in Africa. They are still going through their teething problem. So it becomes important that for a nation like Nigeria, I am not an advocate of balkanization. I am an advocate of a united Nigeria. But what are some of the problems of Nigeria? Number one, the northern Nigeria. I came politically from northern Nigeria, politically, but I am from the Midlands, and somebody from the Midlands, we are historically, politically disadvantaged. Yeah, politically, historically, we are disadvantaged. But that is not the focus of my message. The underdevelopment of Nigeria. If we say Nigeria is an underdeveloped country, if we say Nigeria is a poor country, if we say Nigeria is a terror, stricken country, 90% of the reasons why we made that statement is the northern Nigeria. I think VDM made a video one time saying a similar thing. But this is something that it is obvious. It's just that sometimes when people, you tell people the truth, sometimes they just agitate. Within them, they know. And why is it so? If you look at the northern Nigeria is the reason for the underdevelopment of Nigeria. It's one of the major reasons why Nigeria is underdeveloped. And this thing started from even before 1960, when the agitation for independence was ripe. It was still the northern Nigeria that pulled the country back until 1960. If not, the country would have gained its independence before 1960. And if the country had gained its independence, then the problem of 1967 might not happen, because it might be a crop of other leaders that would have managed the situation. Ojukwu might not be the premier of a western region. The military government might not be there if Nigeria had gotten independence in the 1950s. Some of the problems we faced in 1960, we might not have faced it, because the people that caused the problem, Gowon, Ojukwu, and co., they might not have had access to cause that kind of chaos. That is by the way. So the northern region is a major problem. And the reason why the northern region is a problem is what I call Almajirism. Almajirism. Almajirism is a philosophy where people give birth to children and throw them out, hand them over to religious, so-called religious scholars, and the children, are not catered for by the state. They're not catered for by their parents. They're not catered for by their families. They are thrown to the street, and they are they are programmed to beg. I live in the north 90% of my life. And when I was a child, I grew up with almajiris. When we were going to school, they were at home, around fire, bonfire, and then they have slate, al-kalami, then they'll be writing, going through. No hope, no vision, no driving force. So they existed as the sons of the street. The reason why terrorism might not be eradicated from northern Nigeria is the historical abandonment of generation of children over the years, over decades. These are children that were abandoned from 1940, in fact, from 1900. As far back as when Almajiri was in force, we have people that were abandoned to the street, generation after generation. In the earliest form of it, it was people seeking for knowledge. So they will go to a malam, to a scholar, and they will be trained. And when they graduate, they become, visible and viable instrument of development. They become those who work for the palace. They become those who work for the king. They become scholars themselves. So historically, Almajiri is a system of learning. It's a system of education where people go, just like the apprenticeship that we have in Eastern Nigeria, where you will go to somebody who has a business, and then you learn the skill of entrepreneurship. Then after years, you are settled. That is a similar thing in the north. You go to a scholar, he teaches you, and then you become a scholar too. But eventually, during the transformation of society from cultural and traditional phase to the modern phase that we have, there was a kind of a problem. Many Northerners had issue with Western education because they thought that by going to school they would be Christianized. They had issue with Western education because they thought that it was brought by Christians. So if I send my children to Western school, they will become Christians. And to avoid that, they insisted on their children, going through the Islamic education. But the Islamic education they were going through, it was limited. In a modern world, in a changing world, the northern Nigeria failed to evolve educationally to adapt the Western education. Because in the West, in the South, for instance, when education came, there were traditional institutional systems, educational systems that were existing in southern Nigeria. Like in the Yoruba, there are people that will go to the palace, will go to Oba and whatever to learn, to acquire is blacksmith, to acquire those technical skills, bronze making, iron making. Those things were their educational system. Making of oil, palm oil, so making of cocoa. Those are the things that were their own system, so somebody can go and learn. But when the Western education came, they try to balance the two. They send their children to school and they equally insist on them learning those crafts. But when it got to the side of this northern Nigeria, it was something else altogether. They insisted on the traditional Islamic education. And listen to me. One thing that you must understand is this. Because you see an Almajiri, don't conclude that he's illiterate. An Almajiri is not an illiterate. He might not be literate in English, but he's literate in Arabic. He's literate in Arabic. But the issue is this: the system they organize to train the child is not the type that will broaden his mind, that will break some internal barriers. It wasn't a system. It was not a formalized system. And even the teachers, the scholars themselves, there wasn't a structure to ensure what they were teaching their children or the children. There wasn't system put in place. Just like before you become a teacher in the Western system of education, you have to go to school, acquire some certifications. This one, you will just ascend your education through a particular kind of a teaching. You have a rabbi, you have a teacher, you study under the teacher for a long time, and the teacher certifies you. And sometimes what the teacher teaches you is not scrutinized by any authority. That is how Boko Haram started, because what Boko Haram was teaching, what Metasini was teaching, it was not scrutinized by an organized body. There was no body that scrutinizes what the children are taught. If there is, I have never seen one. In the Western civilization, what the children are taught is scrutinized by the state, by system, educational authority. But this one, you go, you study under somebody, and the person imparted you with his own vision, with his own philosophy, with his own ideology and interpretation of the scripture, interpretation of the way of life, his own vision. He imparts you with it, and you run with it. And anybody that comes under you, you impart them with that particular kind of ideology, philosophy. And that's why we have this plague. But eventually, and don't forget, the northern Nigeria, it is a monarchical kind of system, monarchical society that is highly classified. Classicism, highly classicistic. It's a classic kind of society. Society divided along the lines of class. That's the kind of society. And when you have a society like that, eventually, a few of them went to school, acquire Western education. And with the coming of independence, the educated elite took over everything, power to themselves. And now, relying on religion and culture, because now religion permits you to marry 4 wives, and culture permits you to hand over the children to the street. The political class become more powerful, aligning themselves with the historical monarchical class structure in place, because the monarchical class was not disrupted by the colonialists, because the monarchical class did not, to a large extent, resist colonialism and colonialists like the southern region. So the ruling class was used as a tool of control. And now 3 classes emerged in northern Nigeria. Historically, the monarchical class, the emirs, historically existed, and they were supported by, or they were legitimized by the Islamic scholars, by the clerics. They were legitimized by the clerics. So these 2 classes of people control the society. Because don't forget, the ecclesiastical class, the cleric, they have power over society, over the commoners, because the commoners come to them for knowledge. So they are the leaders of the mosque. They are the leader of thought. They are the leader of knowledge. So the commoners come to them, dependent on them for their own social vision and political vision. So the clerics were very powerful in the north, alongside the ruling class. In fact, there was a point in time that the two classes dovetailed into each other. Because Osman Danfodio, who started most of the emirates in northern Nigeria, he was both a religious leader and a political leader. So he merged the two offices into one. And apart from merging the two offices into one, many of the political leaders also depended on the religious leaders. And in some places, the religious leader is equally the political leader. So the two offices merge into one, like a kind of theocratic kind of system. Now, when you have this kind of system, the two classes having access to power of control, because don't forget, religious leaders, they have power as much as political leaders. As much as political leader, because these offices give people access to control the thoughts of men. You go to church every day, you go to mosque every day. Let me tell you, you are being shaped into the vision of the man you are listening to. As you keep on listening to Jesus, you are shaped into Jesus. As you keep on listening to Muhammad, you are shaped into Muhammad. You have to keep on listening to Buddha. You are shaped into Buddha. As you keep on listening to Hindu, you are shaped into Hindu. Listen to me. Who you listen to shaped your vision, shaped you. You become who you listen to. You become who you listen to. You keep on listening to Moses, you become like Moses. They say, and they were baptized into Moses in the Red Sea or in the wilderness, something like that. So now, to focus on my thought, a time came that the political leaders and the religious leaders, they were in total control of the vision, the ideology, the political vision of the North. The two classes, and let me tell you, till today, they are still in control. Then the third force emerged, empowered by Western education and, the evolution of society, moving from primitive, moving from a colonial society to a post-colonial society. That gave rise to a set of class, to another set of class, which are the intellectuals, the educated elites. Some of them, they travel abroad and got education. The UK, return home. The Bintus. And eventually, when the colonialists were about to leave, naturally, power was thrown to the educated, because these are the people that could communicate with the colonialists. Have you listened to some of the messages of Tafawa Balewa, the Prime Minister of Nigeria? In America, in Canada, he was sound. These are people that, were raised by the colonialists. These are people that saw colonialism at its manifestations and agitated against it. And these were the people that were given birth to by colonialism. They understood colonialism. And they understood the power of education. And having been educated, naturally, they were able to communicate with the colonialists and the colonialists handed over to them the instruments of power in 1960, 1st of October. 19, and don't forget, before that day, many conferences were held to negotiate the independence of Nigeria. And so a third force emerged. So we have how many forces in the north? The ecclesiastical or the clerical force, the traditional institution, the kings and the emirs, and the politicians. These forces emerged. And even till today, the third class that emerged later is not as powerful as the two classes that were historically on ground, culturally rooted. That is why the religious leaders in the north, they are very powerful. They can make a statement and Boko Haram will be born. Can make a statement and ISWAP will come into existence. They can make a statement and Metasini will manifest into reality. They can make a statement and generations will remain as Almajiris. They can make a statement. And equally the kings and the emirs in the north, they are still very potent and powerful because their power was, sustained by the colonialists. The colonialists did not undermine their power. The colonialists did not distort the balance of power in the north. Then the third force emerged, and that is the political force. And when the political force emerged, the three classes formed a strong alliance, took over the reign of power. And something equally happened. There was equally another class that was existing. It wasn't prominent. The economic class, which Dangote and other, Kano state, we have many, people that were wealthy, the economy, the groundnut pyramid, they control the economy. They were a class, but they just operated normally. Sometimes they tend to look at themselves like they belong to the lower class, but then this is a class that is fluid, that anybody can rise sometimes to the economic class. But then these three classes were the dominant. And the three classes determine everything in the north. Everything. They determine what the people see, what the people hear. They are the eyes, the mouth, and the humanity of the Talakawas. These are their humanity. The Talakawas. So if you're able to get the Talakawas on your side as a politician from the south, for instance, and you couldn't penetrate the three strongholds in the north, the tripartite strongholds of the north, you may find resistance because they were able to control the people. Able to control the people. So the Almajiri philosophy is a philosophy whereby you deny the majority access to power. You deny the majority access to thought. You deny the majority access to resources. And then you turn around and give them peanuts as a bait to control them. And eventually, that class, the class of the poor, begin to swell up, begin to swell, because the north discovered the power of number. So they encourage. Let me tell you this. You will easily see a northern governor doing mass marriage, carry billions to do mass marriage. Go and procreate. Mass. Sometimes 2,000 people they will massively give them out in marriage. 2,000 women. Those whose husband abandoned them, bring them, organize them massively. Go and procreate. If you find time to listen to some of the sermons being preached by some of the clerics, you will know that they discover the power of number and they are exploiting it. So it doesn't, you just have number to your side and you don't care the quality of the number, just the quantity. Because it is based on quantity that Kano State has so many local governments that are not, you can't see productivity. It's based on number, just have number. So, but because the people were pushed to a tight corner, they had to resort to two things: the destruction of their humanity by means of begging and living a very tattered life, and then two, picking up arms against the state itself. We've seen that over the years, Matasini, seen that over the years in different crises, communal crisis, in just crisis, in this and that, because you have a mass of people that you have not removed the beast in them. Because education has the ability to remove beast in people. But you have failed to remove the beast in millions of people. 2 million, 20 million of out of school children. What do you think you are doing to this population? It's not all about population, it's about productivity of the population. And it's unfortunate to equally say that the northerners have more access to power than even the southern region. If you look at the history of governance in Nigeria, more northerners have ruled Nigeria than the southerners. They have spent more years in power than the southern region. More years in power from the post-colonial time to military system until date. If you look at the years that the northern Nigeria spent in power, is more, it's 2-3 times more than the years leaders from southern Nigeria spent in power. But you always see that agitation. And you see, it was Buhari that introduced in its full sense the Almajiri politics, the begging politics of the North. You don't focus on productivity. You focus on taking resources from the state, borrowing, and it is looted, it is plundered. That is the philosophy of the Almajiri. Almajiri receive to eat and eat to receive. So you discover that along the line, religion became weaponized in the North. You see people, I understand Hausa very, very well. If you listen to some messages by some preachers that they taught people, it is nothing far from kill them, cut their head, destroy, just kill. It's not everybody. But when you weaponize religion and you teach hate instead of love, you teach intolerance instead of tolerance. When you're supposed to speak against the Muslim ticket, and somebody was saying that till the end of the country, no Christian should rule. When you go to state like Kaduna, that is a balanced state. The southern, in fact, Kaduna is a reflection of Nigeria. The southern region is populated by Christians. The northern region is populated by Muslims. You move all the assets of the state to the Muslim-dominated region, and even deputy governor that's supposed to historically come from the Christian dominated part, Rufai block it, destroy the balance of power. No, no, it shouldn't be so. But you see, religion became very weaponized in the north. I grew up in the north, and in those days, it was love. It was when it is a salad time, we go to eat salad. When it is Christmas, we cook and give people around they eat. But I don't understand the Nigeria of today, because if you go to social media and you listen to messages that people taught their members or their followers on Friday or on Sunday in the church or in the mosque, it is terrible. And when religion is weaponized, society cannot experience peace. When religion is weaponized, what you have is terrorism, you have bloodshed, you have death, you have destruction. Because when religion is weaponized, society cannot advance. Now, if you look at the colonial past and the military rule, you will bear with me that these things affected Nigeria so badly. Because look at what happened during colonialism. The colonial masters came, they raised a group of people, and they handed over power to these people. And these people, they were ardent students of colonialism. They were ardent followers of the colonialists. And don't forget, the independence of Nigeria did not destroy colonialism. It did not destroy the architecture of colonialism. It did not destroy the foundations of colonialism. We started nation building on the structure put in place by colonialism. That is the biggest problem of Nigeria. Because when the leaders came, they took over the offices of the colonialists. They took over the GRA, residences of the colonialists. They took over Victoria Island. They took over residency there. They took over the structures put in place by colonialists. And it was just a mere change of baton. It was just a mere change of tenancy. Till today, the political class in Nigeria is an extension of the colonial class. Till today. In the colonial season, there is no freedom of speech. There's no freedom before speech. There's no freedom after speech. In the colonial time, it was a military, it was a police state. The colonial state was a police state. It depended on arms to sustain its sovereignty and legitimacy. It was the weapon of the police, the weapon of the army that sustains the legitimacy, that legitimized colonialism. What happened in Lekki? When Nigerians bearing the flag of Nigeria, protesting what police brutality, their protest was met by a higher brutality. That is also the system of colonialism was built on military might. And if you look at the Nigerian political structure, is also built on military might. The ability for the armed forces to crush any form of agitation, any form of, if you don't agree with the government in place, you will not be comfortable. Any form of resistance ideologically against the ideology in power, you are met with violence. From the state to the federal level, you notice this pattern. So the colonial state was a military state. The colonial state was an armed forces state. You have no room to protest. Okay, look at the Aba women riot. They were protesting against taxation, unjust taxation. What happened? They were met with cruelty of the armed forces. And there is this play written by Femi Osofison about a protest in Western Nigeria that was met with violence. The women of Owu, there was another protest by miners in Enugu. It was met with brutality. They were crushed by the military state of the colonialists. So the colonial state was a military state. Until today, the Nigerian state is a military state. It was a military state. From the days of the colonialists till date, it is a military state. Till date. They went to Kenya, brought somebody by force to the country. It is a military state. And it is not an indictment of anybody in power. It is the structure in place. It is the foundation built. Without the military, there is no, the political class in Nigeria will be fragile. So they depend on the military to subdue the people, to place the people where the political class wants the people to be. That is the structure. So you see it during colonialism. There is no dissent. You can't speak against the state, against policies, against politics, against governance, against the structure in place, against the constitution. Anything you see, you just have to swallow it. That was how the system was operated by the colonialists. And then, if you go to places where you see semblance of freedom or of advancement, there was something done to the structure and the architecture of colonialism shortly after or before colonialism. If you go to Kenya, for instance, the structure that sustained colonialism was tampered with by blood, by the Mama Rebellion. And eventually, no matter what you think about Kenyan state and the subsequent rise of the forces of oppression that Ngugi wa Thiong'o captured in most of his novels, till today, you discover that there is semblance of advancement. If you place Nigeria and Kenya today, you see that there is difference. Now, let me advance from here, because these are my vision for Nigeria. And I think that we need to do something to the structure, to this, militarization of Nigerian politics, of the Nigerian state. The state is too militarized. The police is not your friend. The police is the friend of those in power. The police is not loyal to the people. The police is loyal to the president. The police is loyal to the state. That is the structure built, that it is a colonial structure. And until that structure is dismantled, where the power is given back to the people, then you cannot have advancement. So the colonial past has affected the country. Then you come down to the military rule, the military regime from 1967, when the military interrupted the government, till its dismantling in 1998 or thereabout. You discover that the military regime also grounded, also enhanced the structure led by the colonialists. And eventually, It was inherited. And don't forget, out of that dark age came the constitution that we are using today, the 1999 constitution. And I believe um, Olusegun Obasanjo did something bad for Nigeria. The moment he came to power, he should have repealed that constitution and built a democratic constitution. Not a constitution, gun pointed at your head, write it, write it. This is just a euphemism. A constitution given to you by the military. Until today, that has become the problem of Nigeria. And I call it the scourge of imposed constitution. It was a constitution imposed on a people, imposed on a state, imposed by people that don't love the country. It was a constitution. And the problem of Nigeria today is the problem of constitution. We don't have a people's constitution. We don't have a constitution that reflects the reality of the state, of the country. We don't have a federalist constitution. We don't have the 1964 constitution that has the semblance of a federalist constitution, and equally the one that was given to Nigeria at its formation. These are the things that document that we're supposed to go back to and look at how it was. And I believe that going back to regional system will be the best for the country. We have the northeast electric power, something, northwest electric power, north central. Every region should have control of their resources. And the state, I'm going to come down to that one. But for me, that is the scourge of imposed constitution. It was a constitution that was imposed on the people by the force of the military. And in 2014, the confab gave us an equally justice, waste something, policy or document. These are things that should have, enhanced the quality of life of Nigeria. But they were jettisoned. I have two more things to speak about before I go, because the video is becoming too long. And I intended to just be a 1 hour of me sharing my vision. But before I share my vision, I think I have to tell us where the rain began to beat us, where we went wrong, and how we can come out of the doldrums, how we can break out of the conundrums that we found ourselves as a people. So I believe that the Nigerian constitution is not a federalist constitution. It is a pseudo-monarchical constitution. It invested so much power on the presidency. It invests so much power on one man. And I have heard it from the lips of many people that the Nigerian president is the most powerful man on earth. I agree with that pronouncement, with that conclusion, hook, line, and sinker. The most powerful man on earth is the Nigerian president, giving so much vast resources, but unable to turn it into an instrument of progress. So it becomes important that the powers in the center be decentralized. Recently, Barnum became the Prime Minister of England, and immediately he created the 10 Northeast. The 10 Northeast. I believe that we should have 6 Asorok in Nigeria. Decentralize power in Nigeria. Decentralize it. The power in Nigeria in the hand of the president. I'm not talking of the president now. In the man called president in Nigeria, the power in the hand of that man is too much. And Nigeria has not grown to the extent whereby one man can wield that kind of power. An individual has been wielding that power from 1999, and they couldn't turn the fortunes of the country to decentralize the power. I'm still going to talk about election, still going to talk about so many things. But the power in the hands of the presidency is too much. So it has to be stripped. It has to be stripped. We either go back to the Nnamdi Azikwe and Tafawa Balewa model, where we can have a president and then we have the prime minister who is the head of government, at least to split the power, to reduce the power. The power is too much. Because today we have the senators that are not doing anything, nothing. We have the judiciary, we don't know what they are doing. There is no decentralization of power, no division of labor, no power is vested in only one man. No. Absolute power. Does what? Corrupt absolutely. Then, what I call being led by non-intellectuals. The political class. And I believe that for you to be a president in Nigeria, you must have a degree. That is the minimum. Minimum is degree. Maximum is PhD. If you don't have it, don't go near Asoro. You don't have duty. Can Dangote give a secondary school holder his business and empire to run? There is something that education does to the human mind, whether we like it or not. We have illiterate, stark illiterate that have no certificate, leading a nation of intellectuals, of educated people. We have people that don't have anything to do with politics or governance. They are the one ruling. How can a president not be able to show us a certificate? No primary school certificate, no secondary school certificate, no university certificate. Right from Buhari, we have that challenge with Buhari, that couldn't bring out the certificate to show us that this is, I went to school. We are having it with the president now. No. For you to lead, you have to show us that you are educated, that you are learned, that you are literate. It's important. When I was a child, my father used to have books that were written by Shagari, or either their compendium of their essays or their speeches, something like that. But you see, books written by this compendium of. But we live in a generation where we have leaders that have never written any book. We don't know their ideology. We don't know their philosophy of life. You just come and say everything is fair in politics. No. Everything is not fair in politics. Humanity, compassion, empathy. These are the things that are fair. So I discovered that it is philosophers that build nations and not politicians. Politicians don't build nations. Politicians don't build countries. It is philosophers. As I'm talking to you, Donald Trump is a philosopher. Who is a philosopher? A man who has written down his thought as a book. The quality, and I believe that there should be a law that if you must be a leader, a president in Nigeria, you must at least minimum write a book detailing your philosophy. Detailing is not manifesto. Or if you write your manifesto as a book of nothing less than 500, nothing less than 2,000 pages. Write your compendium, write your thoughts, publish it by you. Because we can't continue like this. The way we are going, this trajectory, it cannot, it will, a time will come that people will not be. In fact, they rather go and have passport of Togo, which other smaller countries in Africa, Sao Tome and Principe, to have their this thing, to have peace of mind and to say I am from Nigeria. We must prioritize intellectualism. What have you written? Even if somebody wrote for you, but let your name be on that book so that your campaign, for you to campaign, it is a must. You must submit yourself to be interviewed. You must, it is a must. Let it be in the constitution that for you to be a governor, a president, these two that are most important, a senator, a house of rep, you must publish your thoughts as a book. And they should have a library of political or national thought whereby people's vision are there, that somebody can go and say, okay, and that vision determines what you're going to do. That is that because if we don't take things serious, this thing will control like this. People that don't know anything, people that are myopic, that they are Melchizedek, you don't know their beginning, you don't know their end, you don't know where they came from, you don't know their history, you don't know their classmates, you don't know anything about them, and then you just give them presidency to manage. How do you think the country will advance? No nation will advance if politicians are in charge of those countries. Nations only advance when philosophers are in charge. And listen to me, the moment somebody goes to attend university and graduate with a degree, that person is a philosopher to a large extent. Because you wrote your own thought, your own document, your own project, your own thesis. It is your intellectual product, your thought, your idea about society. What is philosophy? Is it not about ideas? Let philosophers lead us. And I'm not talking about just people that have thought, people that have idea written. It is codified. If it is not written, it does not exist. If it is not written, it does not exist. So write it. Let us have those documents. Let us read them. Let us read your thoughts about our country. Let us read it. It's unfortunate that we have a country that is ruled by people that lack ideology. You see, I am an ideologue, and I don't care what you will say. There are political parties in Nigeria that I can never, ever, forever be a member of those parties, because their operations do not rhyme with my philosophy of life, with my vision, with my social vision. So we have political parties that lack clear-cut ideology, clear-cut social vision, clear-cut demarcated vision for Nigeria. We lack them. We don't have them. It's unfortunate that we don't have political parties that are ideological. That people come to these parties because of ideology. We don't have them. It's unfortunate that you see people cross carpeting, moving from one party to another. In the morning, they're in this party, in the evening, they're in that party. Today, you spoke bad about this president, tomorrow, you are with him. Ooh, no, 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 no. My spirit cannot tally with people like that. Is it not only 8 years or 4 years? And I believe that the way Nigeria is today, we should have, don't give anybody 8 years of our lives. No, no, no. It's too risky. Almost a decade given to people that have no vision to manage a country. No, no, it's the biggest mistake that we're making. And I believe that as a people, we have to go back to regionalism, restructure Nigeria into regions. The states can be there, but let us break it into blocks. And each of these regions can have 5 years. 4 years. Okay, let's say 5 years. So that within 20 to 25 years, power can rotate within the regions. Let the regions bring out their best. Restructure the parliament. The president can equally come from the parliament. In the next video, I will dedicate my time to talk about regionalism and how to properly restructure Nigeria. So I will stop here. Thank you for listening to me.